other disturbances within the area where you are. Please use the chat box to speak, indicating speak or question. Please do not put messages on there, and there's no need to put your name either. So after a few housekeeping rules, Mr. White will be the gatekeeper for today. And please, can we have apologies and the number of members in attendance, please? Over to you, Darryl.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. We currently stand at 28 members on the call. We've had apologies from Councillor Sweet, and the one member not currently on the call we're expecting is Councillor Brazil, Chair. So there's 28 members on the call. Thank you.
And then you don't need to ask them if they're present, do you? Because we know who they are. So apologies for absence, which we've had, and we've been advised of how many members are in attendance. So item 1 is the minutes of the last meeting to approve as a true and correct record held on the 17th of December. So is everyone in favour of these minutes? Are you all happy with them? No one has said that they're not, so we'll take that as okay. Yes.
Thank you, Chair.
Item 2, urgent business. There are no items raised at present. Item 3, exempt information. Now, members, there may be a need to divide the agenda. Some of the Ivy Bridge regeneration appendices are exempt, so if we stray into exempt information, we may need to divide the agenda. Item 4, I invite members to declare any personal or disclosable pecuniary interest. Any declarations will need to state if the interest is personal or a disclosable pecuniary interest and the nature of such interest. Members, do you have any interest that you wish to declare? No? Okay, moving on. Item 5, business brought forward by the chairman. I have no items brought forward for discussion today. So we move into the agenda proper, which is item 6, which is the 2021-22 revenue budget proposals on page 17 of the amended agenda pack, starting on page 17.
Sorry, Chair, before we do, I've just noticed Councillor Panel has put a point of order in the chat box.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. White. Very quickly, Chairman, it's only a minor point, and you'll probably say I'm being pernickety, but at the end, it does ask members to sign the attendance register, which is obviously very difficult at the moment. I just wondered if we could remove that from previous agendas, from future agendas for the time being.
Well, I don't have it on my mind, sorry. So not with where I'm
respond. We'll update the templates on that one. Thank you, Councillor Panel.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, then, so we'll move on to item 6, which is the revenue budget proposals for 21-22, and our leader, Councillor Pearce, is going to introduce this report. So over to you, Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Chairman, and good afternoon, members, and any members of the public present and officers present. I'd like to start the introduction to this year's revenue budget proposals by thanking most sincerely both the Section 151 officer, Lisa Buckle, and all the finance team, led so ably by Pauline Henstock, for their close attention to detail as ever, which has produced such a well-balanced budget in difficult times. Members, you are already familiar with most of the content of this report, which provides an update on our overall financial position and details the formal proposals of the executive to achieve a balanced budget, which is what we have to do by law. The minutes of the executive meeting of the 28th of January 2021 are included elsewhere on this agenda and provide a more complete picture of the decisions taken. The final local government finance settlement was announced on the 4th of February, and I leave you to judge whether you think that is a good way of helping local authorities determine their budgets. The main change is that the lower tier services grant has increased by £24 from £82,147 in the final settlement. This small change of £24 has been amended in Appendix B. and the income from business rates has been reduced by £24 to produce a balanced budget of the same amount, 9.6 million. There are two minor errors which need to be pointed out, where the report refers to public sector housing instead of private sector housing in conjunction with DFGs. These occur on page 27 of this report and page 49, which shows Appendix A. There will be a one-year spending round for 21-22 and plans for a more substantial spending review for 22-23 onwards. So effectively, this is a roll-forward finance settlement from the government for 21-22 for 1 year. Local government finances are increasingly stretched, and there is a great deal of financial uncertainty for district councils from 2021 onwards. The next few years will be challenging as the council moves into the recovery phase. The government's fair funding review and the reset of business rates baseline will be introduced, coupled with receiving no government grant and the cessation of the current New Homes Bonus scheme. And today, a consultation on the on the proposed New Homes Bonus scheme has been published. The consultation goes on until the end of the first week in April. It's recommended that council tax is increased by £5, which equates to a Band D council tax of £175.42 for the next municipal year, an increase of £5 per year or 10 pence per week. This is 2.93%. This is a 2.93% increase. This only applies to the South Hams District Council share of the council tax bill, which equates to 9% of the overall bill. The amount of council tax charged by DCC, the fire and police and town and parish councils will be added to this to make up the overall bill. The £5 increase will enable this council to maintain its essential frontline services, which include waste and recycling, housing, planning, environmental health, and the administration of council tax business rates and benefits. As part of the revenue budget proposals, it's also proposed to allocate £500,000 for funding the recovery and renewal plan. It is important that we take a strategic approach to recovery to ensure that we learn from the response, understand the new challenges we face, and emerge as an organisation that is fit for purpose and financially sustainable. It's also proposed to allocate a further £200,000 to the Climate Change Action Plan, which can be used for projects that tackle both climate change and help a green recovery from the pandemic. Both of these amounts are one-off allocations of funds to be taken from the Council's earmarked reserves and New Homes Bonus funding. At this time, I am able to share with you that we are drawing up a really wide-ranging list of possible actions to aid the recovery with these monies. All the suggested projects are closely linked to already approved future actions in either the Recovery Action Plan or the Climate Change and Biodiversity Action Plan. These will have to be explored further for feasibility, costings and capacity to deliver. But I'm just going to give you, if you'll forgive me, Madam Chairman, a brief insight into our thinking. Now, the opportunities as we see them are several, and for some of the opportunities, I'll give you a few examples as well so that you've got some idea of what's going on. And the list also references the recovery programme and the climate change action programme so that you can see how they relate. We can deliver policy and service reviews that will help our climate change and biodiversity ambitions. And I would suggest that renewing the existing vehicle fleet, which we intend to do, and upgrade with electric vehicles and the associated infrastructure, and also the commercial and grounds, the commercial waste and grounds maintenance reviews will fulfil this opportunity. There are renewable energy opportunities. We can look at battery storage, and we could also look at a hydro scheme on the at Ivy Bridge, which I think would be a really good demonstration of green credentials. It's quite fun to see on a river, and it reminds local people of what can be done to provide power locally. Are you getting an echo? Because I'm getting a slight echo back. I'm just wondering if why it's coming back like this. Don't know. Anyway, I think we need to take a serious look at rural poverty, and I'd be in favour of a pilot scheme, having identified the areas of highest rural deprivation, working with partners to give targeted support of various kinds, but including access to benefits, housing improvement grants, energy switching, job creation, and even basic IT skills to people who live out in really remote rural areas, because I think they are very isolated, and it's about time we paid a little bit more attention to some of these people. The green infrastructure and ecology opportunities are numerous. There can be community engagement over conservation plans, both for the natural environment and the historic environment. There can be feasibility work to look at cycle schemes and active travel, even though we may find it difficult to deliver those ourselves. There is an exciting new project on the drawing board, so to speak, for a forest for Plymouth and southwest Devon, which will be a kind of green necklace around the city, but will be mainly in South Hams, in the South Hams area. And then there's an opportunity for a green or a woodland burial site. As far as the coastal areas go, we are becoming part of the LEP Coastal Productivity Plan Committee. We can look at business support for the visitor economy, tourist enhancement, and better branding of our area. I've nearly finished now. Know Your Carbon Footprint and a Go Zero scheme. We're running awareness campaigns, and there is an exciting opportunity coming up for this in March, which I'll send out further details on imminently. We need to promote behavioural change in the community, and this project in March will be a good way of looking at that. There are opportunities for active travel and many other things we can do in this area. Business engagement is really important, and we need to, we can give support, including direct economic interventions. We've got the COVID support officers already, and they're doing a really good job. We're looking at high street interventions, dressing shop windows of vacant premises, and gap and seed funding of work units for delivering those projects. Finally, we need to support strategic employment and infrastructure with feasibility studies and have oven-ready projects to unlock funding. This is really important, and where we've been falling down, because when the funding opportunities come through, we don't have oven-ready projects on the shelf. It's quite difficult to coordinate, but we think that we can. We're now employing the right officers to enable that to happen. In addition, the revenue budget includes the creation of 4 new seasonal jobs within our localities team to reflect the increased number of visitors to the area in the spring and summer months. The summer influx of visitors leads to a greater need for the services carried out by locality offices, such as community engagement and environmental management. The report also recommends allocating a £10,000 contribution to the CVS for the next 2 years in recognition of the work they have carried out and are carrying out in the pandemic. Strong financial management over many years and the continual drive for efficiency has enabled the council to accommodate service pressures while still maintaining a relatively low level of council tax. Members, I commend these budget proposals to you.
Thank you, Councillor Pearce. Thank you. Now we move on to questions, and the first question I have is Councillor Mackay. Would you like to ask your question, please?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, your presentation, Councillor Pearce, I mean, it's very encouraging, some of the things that you're saying there about projects that could go towards building green economies and addressing climate change, etc., etc. I just want to ask, and it is a bit of a technical question, I suppose, in a way, and but currently the £400,000 that's been set aside for climate change and biodiversity has been notionally divided into 2 pots, one being for internal use and one for external use. the external being community, and I understand how it's going to get administered or could be administered through the crowdfunding scheme. So all of that I understand. So we're now proposing to put £200,000 into this already divided pot. Do you have any notion as to where that £200,000 would sit? Is it going to be split half and half, or is it going to go into a separate reserve that can be drawn on by each pot? Oh gosh, shut up. That's my question.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor McKay. The purpose of the £200,000 this year we see as being directly linked to helping the recovery, but with the green projects. So it's hoping that we will spend this £200,000 as quickly as we can in order to help the recovery. And that's why a lot of the projects I mentioned have a green aspect to them, and we can use that money for them. The other £400,000 can be spent on projects that are going to help the recovery, but maybe in the projects that don't have such a green angle to them. I see the difference as being slightly semantic, but because they've got different labels on, they'll be used in different ways. Does that answer your question? If you want me to say anything about the £400,000, I will, but the £400,000 that was voted last year, we saw at the time, not really knowing what the pandemic was going to do to us, as being a long-term fund. And we didn't see a lot more funding coming that way. And actually in the future, because of the constraints we're under, I don't see a lot more funding going that way. And that's why it's been divided up. And that's why even the part for local communities has been divided into two tranches of 100,000. So if you like, to make it last, because it would not be wise to spend it all now and not be able to spend anything in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. The next question I have is Councillor Hodgson, please. Question.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I just wanted to ask really where all these ideas have come from. Obviously, it's very good and it's like a lot of standard stuff. And I know it fits in a lot with what we've already put in our climate action plan that was agreed in December. But I mean, I'm just thinking there's lots of really good ideas out there. There's lots of our town and parish councils are doing a lot of work. And I just think it's really important that we have some kind of working group that actually looks at them, prioritises them and understands them, because I wasn't quite sure who the we was, because this is a new shopping list and I thought we was the council. But I'm not disagreeing with any of them. I think it's all good. But I mean, it'd be difficult to squeeze it out of the budget that we've got. And I just feel that it's really useful to engage councillors who are, a group of councillors specifically to look at this, and working group where other councillors can come in if they wish to. I mean, one of the things that I think we really need to look at, as I mentioned this in December, is our target recycling, the recycling target, which I think is unbelievably low, and that could make a big difference. And it's something that all the, most people in the South Hams could kind of participate in as well. So I just wanted to ask that really, because I think it's, I think it's good that we're all engaged in this rather than just being told that's what's happening. Thank you.
Councillor Hodgson, where have you been? We're moving over to a super recycling scheme from the end of March onwards.
I know, but I'm just remembering
that is likely to push our recycling rates up by 10%. Well, that's what has been indicated by officers. And with promotion, we could make it higher than that. We are going into one of the best recycling services in the country from the end of March onwards. And there's no reason why our recycling rates shouldn't really increase and our black bin rates go down. I mean, I hate putting yoghurt pots in the black bin, but at the moment I have to.
I understand that, but what I'm trying to say is that really our target should be zero waste if we're really serious about climate emergency, not sort of like 64% or whatever it was in the December meeting. Well, but anyway, that's just a detail. I mean, to be honest, you're not answering my main question, which was really about.
Okay. I will answer your main question. Yes, when this proposal was made to put this money aside, I tasked officers with drawing up a list of projects which we could feasibly carry out. Now, obviously, we don't have the officer capacity to do all that at once. And I think really what we now need to do is to task officers with looking at costing some of them and of the most feasible ones, because I don't think any of them are going to be unpopular with officers. When we have got a feasibility list, then there may be a choice as to what goes first. But I would remind you that the climate change action plan and strategy has now moved back into the executive and is going to be scrutinised by overview and scrutiny once every 6 months. So that will be the route for deciding how this happens.
I'm not very happy with that, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't have any more questions in the chat box. Does any other member wish to ask a question, please? Councillor Thomas, by the looks of it. Yes, Councillor Thomas, would you like to go ahead?
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Pearce, you mentioned the process of ideas going to ONS. Could I just ask you, when it comes to spending the money towards green issues, have you given any thought to the possibility that we might employ a system not dissimilar to the Sustainable Communities Localities Fund, whereby an amount is actually allocated to individual ward members who, working with officers, can therefore support projects from the bottom up rather than the top down? I mean, we have a large number of groups already across the district.
Yes, Councillor Thomas, maybe you haven't got to grips with the ideas that have been coming out of the working group. A forum has been set up of community leaders. Some of them are parish councillors, some of them are other prominent members of the community. And they are discussing at the moment the best way of putting the first £100,000 tranche out to bids. Now, that will be the time when you can support your parish council or local people to make a bid for the project they want to do and help them follow up on that. I hope, is that a satisfactory answer to your question?
It is. The point I was simply asking.
I heard what you said about your sustainable, well, you've got your Sustainable Localities Fund, which you can always award money out of, but I think it's actually going to the people to make their own applications is possibly a better way of doing it in this instance than actually giving the money to individual councillors, because I know what will happen. Some councillors will spend all of it straight away and other councillors will have it hanging around in their budgets.
Okay, that's fine. I wasn't suggesting that it wouldn't be spent. It was more, it was just simply the procedural question on the fact that councillors are possibly best placed, able to publicise and advertise. Right,
we move on to the next one, which is Councillor Mark Long, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I was interested to hear the comment about renewing the fleet with electric vehicles. Is there a timescale on this, given the sort of recognised limitations in sort of commercial vehicles and their abilities for towing, weight, distance, and particularly in an area like this? Obviously, the idea is good, but is there the technical capabilities out there to sort of service all of our vehicles and also the ability to charge the vehicles? And just interested in the timescale.
Councillor Long, I don't think the details have been looked into, but we do know that every year we put away some money to renew our vehicles. And I don't think of this as the waste vehicles, because I think we know at the moment we couldn't possibly put them on electric charging because they just can't manage the distances they have to do. We're thinking more of the white vans that the locality officers use and the grounds maintenance vans and things like that. It will have to be looked into carefully. And I would suggest that the locality officers will probably be the first ones to have the vans because they've got the smallest and lightest vans. And I think that at the moment is the limiting factor, that the technology is not as perfect as it could be.
Yeah. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, but it will all be, assessed and all the rest of it. But I think it's important that we look to doing that rather than even thinking of changing the vans next time to conventional vans.
No, I agree. Thank you.
Oh, does Councillor Baldry want to answer a question there?
No, you've already answered it. I was going to say that it doesn't. We do not have refuse vehicles available anywhere in this country which cover the rural areas such as we represent, which could be used as electric vehicles. At the moment, they just don't exist.
Okay, thank you for that. Actually, I dropped out at that point, so I've rejoined again now. Well, I don't know why I dropped out. The next question I had is, are there any other members who wish to ask questions before? I've got Councillor McKay who wishes to ask another question. Are there any other members who wish to ask a question? If not, I'll bring Councillor John McKay back. So, Councillor McKay, would you like to ask your question again, please?
Thank you. It's just a follow up on Dan, Councillor Thomas's proposal. It was suggested that he would bring this thing to the forum, but unfortunately, members aren't allowed to attend this forum. So how can I ask what mechanism would be he should use in order to introduce his ideas into the discussion that's taking place at the forum?
Yes, certainly. Either he can make representation to Adam Williams, who will take it to the forum, or if he knows one of the forum members, he can do it through them.
Okay.
Right, thank you. So all the questions haven't been asked as far as I can see from the chat box. I don't see any hands up either. So we will move into the debate now. So the debate, we will then move on to Councillor Pearce, if you would like to make your proposals, and I believe Councillor Baldry is going to second them. Councillor Pearce?
Thank you. Yes, Madam Chairman, I formally therefore propose the revenue budget recommendations, which are set out on pages 19 and 20 of the agenda and are numbered 1 to 10. I don't think I need to read them because everybody should have them up on the screen. Are they on the? Sorry, I'm looking at members rather than the screen at the moment, but I'm sure they'll be coming up on the screen. Here we are.
Yeah, there we go. Yes, yeah, we do have them, and Councillor Baldry has indicated that he will second the recommendations. So does anyone wish to enter into the debate, please? Speakers, who have I got? I've got Councillor Birch. I believe you're first, Councillor Birch.
Thank you. I'd like to speak in support of the recommendation, and in particular item little 6. The proposal of 500,000 and 200,000 was initiated at the joint DMC and ONS meeting held last month, and when the proposal was put forward, I think it's fair to say it attracted a healthy debate, and to a certain extent the healthy debate continued along the way. So I'd like to thank the executive for taking on board the points that were made during the debate and beyond, and then putting forward this recommendation to the meeting today. So once again, thanks for bringing this forward. I'd just like to put in a plea for the necessary actions to be taken to ensure that these monies are allocated or activated for projects sooner rather than later. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Birch. With the next speaker, Councillor Baldry, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm speaking as the seconder of the motion, which is a very unusual event, but Chairman, if I can just say, as this is the first chance I've had to speak properly today, I hear your husband has not been well, and may I send him our very best wishes, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I am seconding, very unusually, I am seconding as leader of the opposition for the reasons that Councillor Birch has said. I think we have had examples of this, of us working across the council, all members, the Overview and Scrutiny and Development Management Committee, working and coming up with proposals which were then accepted by the executive. And I think it is tremendous good news for this council that all members have been involved in the creation of this budget, and that is the main reason why I am supporting it. I think it is an opportunity for us to work together for the benefit of the people of the South Hams. Can I just make a brief comment, however, on recommendation 1, which is to increase council tax by, as the leader has said, £5 for a Band D property per annum, which is the maximum we're allowed to do by government. I hate council tax as a means of raising money. It is a regressive tax. It hits people on lower incomes harder than those who are much more wealthy. But it is the system we are stuck with. And we are stuck with it partly and entirely because the government bases core spending power on the fact that they expect us to increase our council tax by this maximum amount. It is a system I'd love to see replaced by, for example, a local income tax. But it is, if we do not accept it, then we'll not have sufficient income to meet our needs. I've also said that working together is the way forward, and we had an example in the leader's introduction today. The Ivy Bridge River creating electricity scheme came up, and Councillor Abbott spoke and I spoke about it. I mentioned it at the executive meeting, and it is now apparently been accepted. And that is a tremendous example where we've got ideas coming out and being accepted fairly quickly. That a river generating electricity scheme, excellent. And just finally, in conclusion, woodland burial. I was involved in the setting up of a woodland burial in my ward, and I really welcome that idea as another means of going forward. So thank you. I'm happy to second the proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Baldry. Thank you for your kind words. Next.
Chairman.
Okay, yes, you go ahead, Councillor Pennington.
Yes, I think it's a very good budget, yes, and I shall be supporting it. But what I want to draw attention to, and I posed a question two questions to Lisa Buttle. And very kindly, Lisa, you've sent them back. I am concerned about the increases in town and parish councils. And I don't know whether all the members have got those statistics or not, but I have got them now. Have members got those statistics, by the way? Do you know?
Yes, they were sent out to all members.
Oh, they're sent out to all members. Good. Yes. Because if one looks at those, you see the big differences between some of them and the district council, whereby you've got under increase and decrease for the total of town and parish councils, you've got £223,907, and some of them have increased them a lot. One increased their council tax by 90%, and these are things that need to be looked at. Because, 6 councils raised their precepts by 30%, and one, as I say, by over 90%. 11 councils marginally reduced, and congratulations to those 11. I'm not going to name them. And therefore, this has sort of fortified me to make a proposal, if I may. Can I do that? Can I do that?
Darryl?
Yes?
Darryl, could you advise, please?
I think what we should do, and I think all councils should do this is not good enough. And I'm going to move this based on the essential and fair premise that all councils at all levels should be equally treated on financial legislation, and also on the vital interests of council taxpayers in the current economic downturn. The government should therefore consider the introduction of legislation to enforce all parish and town councils to accept the legislation which is enforced on all district councils, which subjects the increase in council tax to the higher of 1.99% or £5. I would like to propose that, and we should get in touch with the ministry and our MP and try to enforce this, because you can't have people raising taxation in these circumstances where people are suffered big income losses. 90%. It's absurd when we are forced to keep it to 1.99%. And so I'm moving that. I haven't asked for a second, But if anybody's prepared to second it, so be it. If not, let the parish councils get away with it all, subject to our poor taxpayers.
Okay. Who can help me out on this one, please?
Chairman, I can advise from a technical point of view as the
Thank
Section
you.
151 officer, if that's helpful.
Please, Lisa.
Thank you, Chairman. So for 21-22, the council tax referendum legislation has already been laid in Parliament. That sets out that there is no referendum limit for town and parish councils. We have had all of our for 21-22. So all we would be able to do would be to lobby for a change in those council tax referendum limits for 22-23, because the regulations for the next financial year have already been laid in Parliament and will be legislation. With regards to the town and parish councils, that on average that will have gone up £6.23. So a town and parish council was £71.66, and that's going to go up to £77.29. And we have circulated to all members all of the 61 different town and parish council rates. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. I've got two members calling point of order. Point of order, Councillor Birch.
Yes, thank you. I would think Mr. Councillor Pennington should be advised that any amendments being put forward in the revenue budget debate should have been lodged with the head of paid service by 9 o'clock on Monday. This was not lodged by that time,
yes,
and therefore it should not be allowed.
Yes, it was.
So I think, Madam Chair, it's up to you to be advised by Mr. White as to the procedure, and I would submit that this is out of order.
Thank you, and I guess that Councillor Baldry wished to make the same comment.
Councillor Birch, would you please now ask Councillor White?
Over the top of Councillor Pennington.
Hold on, can we have one person at a time, please? Councillor Pennington. Mr. White.
I was going to make the same point of order, but I see that Mr. Fairbairn's hand is up. But as this was not on the order paper, it is not acceptable as an amendment.
No, it's not. You're absolutely right, Mr. Fairbairn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Everybody has said everything I would have said. It is not an acceptable amendment due to the council procedure rules prohibiting amendments if they're not made by the due time. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for that. Thank you. I've got two more members wish to enter into the debate. One is Councillor Brazil and the other one is Councillor Panel. So Councillor Brazil, would you like to go first, please?
Yes, thank you, Rose. First of all, just on that point, perhaps Councillor Pennington would like to introduce that as a motion at a future full council, and then we can properly debate it. Whereas I understand that putting up taxes is no one likes it, but in the same way that we are forced to put up taxes because of cuts from central government and the devolution of powers. Well, not powers, but devolution of liabilities from central government mean that we have to do more, and as a result, it costs more, and we have to put council tax up. And I think that's the same with parish councils. There are no lengthsmen in their parishes anymore, so they have to pay for them somehow, or allow their parish maintenance to completely fall by the by. So, but anyway, moving on from that, I just to echo what Keith said about the council tax. Council tax is a regressive tax. It's an absolute disgrace. It's a barefaced cheek that old honest Bob Jenrick can stand up and say that they've increased the core spending for this council. They haven't done anything of the sort. What they've allowed us to do is increase council tax, which will increase the core spending. It's nothing to do with the government. Government have passed the buck once again, and it's absolutely outrageous that some of the most vulnerable people in our community struggling to pay council tax, and I appreciate it's only £5 for South Hams, but it's a lot more for the county, and if you include, and a lot more for the police and indeed the fire authority as well. If you add it all up, these people are really struggling, and instead of using a much more fairer form of taxation, i.e. income tax or national insurance. They've forced it onto councils to raise council tax, and I think it's an absolute disgrace. And certainly not levelling down or levelling up or whatever they're trying to do. I should also add to that, of course, is that at the same time, this government, despite continuous lobbying, and you know, and I take my hat off to South Hams District Council, who've done, you know, as much as any in this field to try to close the loophole of people who own second and more homes being able to opt out of council tax and then not pay any business rates because they can claim the allowances for small business rates relief. Once again, these people are using all our services, the fire, the police, road maintenance, and yet they pay not a penny for it and then make money out of it. And to top it all off, this government has then chosen to give them over £15,000 in grants during COVID. So whereas I will vote for this budget, I do so with a heavy heart, and it will be the last time that I'll be doing so, because I think it's that in a way we're being complicit with central government in misleading the general public, in thinking that it's the council that's having to put up taxes because of its inefficiency, when in fact it's this central government. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brazil. I've got Councillor Pannell who would like to speak, and then Councillor Pearce will sum up. Councillor Pannell.
Thank you, Chairman. Only very briefly to come back on what Councillor Pennington was saying. I'd like to speak up for town and parish councils. I'm not a member of one, but I've sat through many meetings where members of those bodies have complained at the cutting of services by county and district. And the reply has been, we no longer have the money to do it. If you want it in your communities, you'll have to pay for it. I can think of keeping toilets open, keeping the streets clear of weeds, keeping the puddle holes free, and, for example, specific one-off projects. A council may want to buy new land for playing fields, allotments, cemeteries, these sorts of purposes, and they need to seize that opportunity, which may result in an increased precept, and I think we would be stifling local government at its very roots if we were to restrict them in doing that. The ultimate sanction lies in the hands of the voters. If the voters don't, if the people of a parish or a town don't like what their council is doing, they can elect new members to follow a different policy. So I don't think Councillor Pennington's suggestion is valid.
Thank you. Councillor Pearce, would you like to move to sum up, please, before we take the vote? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Well, I think in summing up, I'll try and reply to some of the remarks that have been made, because I think in their way they were all good remarks. I'd like to thank Councillor Birch and assure him that we will hopefully get some of these projects off the ground pretty quickly, because I am as keen as he is to spend the money, but I think there is only a certain amount we can spend, so possibly more of that later. I'd like to thank Councillor Baldry for his support as Leader of the Opposition. I do think it's encouraging that 2 years running we've had a fair amount of collaboration over the budget and have come out to a point where at least most councillors can support it, which actually, because we've got to pass a balanced budget, we need, and it's technically illegal to vote against it, it is helpful to show that we have got everybody, or at least most people, behind it. And it's also good that all members are involved in budget setting, because I do remember a time when there wasn't a joint overview and scrutiny and development management committee. And when I sat on development management, I thought it was really undemocratic that all members didn't have a say. And that was the origin of those two committees joining together. Now, the council tax increase, yes, I agree that council tax is a regressive tax, but local taxes have ever been based on, have had a property base. And the alternative to council tax as it stands at the moment would be having a property-based tax based on the valuation of your property. Now, I would suggest to you that unwittingly that would be just as hard for a lot of people if you consider a family that had lived, say, in Salcombe or Dartmouth for the last 30 or 40 years. They would unwittingly have bought a house for a reasonable sum of money and now found themselves sitting on an absolute fortune and probably have to pay about £5,000 or £6,000 council tax a year. So that might not be such a good idea. So I think we've got to be careful what we wish for. A local income tax would be very difficult to calculate and would no doubt have to come through the Inland Revenue, who would charge huge sums, no doubt, for collecting it for us. So I think there are pros and cons to every system. I'm really pleased that Councillor Baldry finds the hydro scheme exciting, because I think it sounds like really quite a good scheme to pursue, because as much as the electricity it will generate, it would be something that would capture people's imagination. And I think particularly for children, it's a really good way of showing them how local energy can be generated. Councillor Pennington talked about percentage increases. Well, it's percentages of what, isn't it? Because some parish councils have been extremely abstemious for years and years and years, but now do find themselves with new play parks to maintain, or the public loos to run, or a number of things that have been devolved down to them. And so they actually are quite right. I think everybody would rather live in a parish that is well run than a parish that doesn't have the funds to do the things it needs to do. And so I think the increases in the parishes, it's up to the parishes to determine them. There is the ballot box, although I know, unfortunately, not many parish councils are elected. But I actually think it's a good thing that the parishes certainly are still allowed to determine their precepts. The towns, I think, we've got to be a bit more circumspect about, because I think they do run away with themselves a bit sometimes. I think I've covered Councillor Brazil's remarks already, except for the second homes, Councillor Brazil. Now, you know that I agree with you on this. You know we've been doing everything possible to get round this. You know, for the first 2 rounds of grants, I actually stopped them going out to second homes in the hopes that we would get an announcement from government, but we never did. But don't hold your breath. But I hear that there may be something in the spring budget on this, so I'm ever hopeful. But I do know that our MP, Anthony Mangnall, has been lobbying Jessie Norman, a Treasury Minister, very hard on this. And I think the message has reached its goal, because I know also that Rishi Sunak understands exactly what we're talking about. And Councillor Pannell, I think I've covered most of your remarks anyway. So all in all, the general message I'm getting is that we may not like all of this, but we realise it's got to happen because it's the only way it can happen. And we have got to keep frontline services running. And I do think that officers are seeing that we run a pretty tight ship, and particularly the finance officers have got us under very good management, and we are extremely lucky to have them. So, Chairman, I conclude my remarks saying that I still commend this budget to all members.
Thank you, Councillor Pearce. Thank you for summing up, which has covered, I think, all the points that have been raised during the debate of this item 6. And we now move to the vote. Councillor, Darrell, would you like to oversee the proceedings, please?
Will do. Thank you very much, Chair. Just to clarify, members, that in accordance with legislation, it is a requirement for a named recorded vote on all budget-related decisions. So this result will show in the published minutes, members, and we're voting en bloc on parts 1 and 10 of the recommendation for item 6. Thank you, members. In alphabetical order, Councillor Abbott.
4.
Councillor Austin.
4.
Baldry. Councillor Baldry. I'll come back. Councillor Bastow.
4.
Thank you, Councillor Birch.
4.
Brazil.
4.
Brown.
4.
Councillor Chown.
4.
Foss.
4.
Hawkins.
4.
Hodgson? Councillor Hodgson?
4. Sorry.
Councillor Holway?
4.
Councillor Hopwood?
4.
Jackson?
4.
Kemp?
4.
Long?
4.
McKay? Councillor McKay? Councillor Callaghan?
4.
Panel?
4. I said.
Yep. Councillor Panel?
4.
Councillor Pearce?
4.
Councillor Pennington?
4.
Councillor Pringle?
4.
And Councillor Reeve?
4.
Councillor Rose?
4.
Councillor Rowe?
4.
And Councillor Smurden?
4.
And Councillor Spencer?
4.
Councillor Taylor?
4.
Councillor Taylor?
4.
Thank you. Councillor Thomas? Councillor Thomas?
Councillor Thomas has indicated he's having connection issues, as is Councillor Baldry.
Councillor Baldry, you there? No. Councillor McKay? No. And Councillor Thomas? No. That therefore, Chair, is 26 votes in favour and therefore unanimous for the parts 1 and 10 of the recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We've got 2 members that have dropped out. They're having connection issues, so hopefully they'll soon be back in to join us again. We then move on to item 7, which is the capital budget. Proceedings on page 37 of the agenda, and the leader is going to introduce this report. Please.
Chairman, it's Councillor Foss here, Vice Chair, coming in. There's lots of echo in the background and all sorts going on. I don't know whether we got a bad connection somewhere, but I think it's not brilliant. I only heard half of Darrow asking questions just now, or asking people to respond, and didn't hear all the answers either.
Okay, well, yes, I'm not quite sure what's going on either, because I didn't hear it properly all the time. And sometimes when members are speaking, they were getting an echo as well. So I'm not too sure. Perhaps Mike Ward, who is our IT man, who was on the call.
Chair, we've got Chris Johns from IT looking into the issues for Councillor Baldry.
Right.
Honestly speak.
Thank you. Thank you. So shall we proceed or wait for a few moments? What would you?
Councillor Hopwood, Chair's put a hand up.
Councillor Hopwood.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got a bit of an issue with votes when people are voting, and it's really not, I don't think it's acceptable to end the vote when people have dropped out through no fault of their own. I certainly wouldn't like it if my vote wasn't recorded on something which is so important as the budget. So can I ask that, although the vote has been taken, when those 2 members come back on, could their votes be added, please, when they've been asked how they would vote?
I will have to seek advice from this, perhaps either from Mr. White or Mr. Fairburn. I think he might have his hand up. Somebody's got that.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I don't think it's possible to do that. Once the vote's been taken, the vote's been taken. So unfortunately, I don't think we can add the councillors who've lost connectivity during the course of the vote, unfortunately.
No, and at this point in time, it would, the vote wouldn't have made any difference. So, yes.
Sorry, Chair, we've just been advised that there's been Councillor Baldry certainly suffering from a power cut. So if that's in the immediate area and affecting Councillor Thomas as well, but Councillor Baldry suffering from a power cut.
Okay, so what do we want to do about that? Carry on.
Chairman, could they join on their mobile phones?
We will try. Bear with us, please, Chair.
Okay. So shall I wait or shall I continue?
Please continue.
I would have thought you should. I personally, Chair, I would give it a couple of minutes to just give them a chance, because otherwise you're denying them the opportunity to debate in the next one.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. So for the joys of modern technology, it's fine when it works, but when it doesn't, it's a complete so and so. We'll hang on until we know if they can join by phone or not. Very often, if you've got no power, your phones don't work either, but we'll see.
While we're waiting, it's Michael Wood here. I've just spoken to Councillor Baldry, and he's just waiting for his router to power up. He said it's taking quite some time, but he seems to be back on with power anyway, so should be joining us shortly.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike. Perhaps when Councillor Baldry joins us, somebody will let us know that he is with us. And the same with Councillor Thomas. It's really annoying if you do lose connection.
Chairman, it's Dave Trabbin. Whilst we're paused there, can we say that in terms of the absent members, that we'll include a note in the minutes to say that councillors X and Y or whoever has lost connection, and therefore for the purposes of the rules were not present at the time of the vote, and that'll just explain what happened.
Yeah,
why their names aren't in the minutes.
That sounds good advice. Thanks for that. Thanks, Mr. Fairbairn. Can we make sure that happens, Darryl?
That will happen. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Chairman, I'm back in.
Oh, well done. Excellent.
Councillor, we're both in Yampton. Councillor Thomas went off, and it took absolutely forever for my router to get back up. It was only off for about 30 seconds, the electricity.
Yeah, I know.
I guess it's the high winds. Can someone check if Dan's back in?
Is Councillor Thomas with us yet?
It's Mike here again. I've just noticed he's come back online, so I've called him into the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Well, I can hear he's back in.
I can hear some children by the sounds of it.
Yeah, that's what makes me think he's back in.
Right. Councillor Thomas, are you there?
I am. I've muted so you can't hear the children, and I shall mute again, but thank you very much.
Oh, good. Thank you. We'll proceed now then. So we'll move on to item 7, which is the capital budget proposals for 21-22 on page 37 of the agenda. And I will ask Councillor Pearce to introduce the report, please. Thank you. Councillor Pearce.
You're on mute, Councillor Pearce.
Thank you. I apologise for that. The Executive has recommended a capital works programme for 21-22 amounting to £2,380,000. All projects have been assessed against the categories set out in paragraph 2.3 of the report. Projects include 1.1 million for private sector renewals, including disabled facility grants to enable less able residents to live independently within their own home. £550,000 towards the waste fleet replacement programme. and £500,000 for the provision of car parking adjacent to the Dartmouth Health and Wellbeing Hub. And that will be a new car park from an informal car park which has been there as an overflow. Some of the items you see in this report are standing reserve items, where we put away a relatively small sum of money each year to have a reserve to cover the cost when needed, such as the roof at Follerton House. But that doesn't mean to say we're going to spend all the money this year or even next year. The other items are self-explanatory, but as usual, I would be happy to take questions on anything in the capital budget proposals. Thank you, Chairman.
It appears I just lost the agenda on the screen. That disappeared completely, but I've got it back now. And so if anyone wishes to ask
questions,
any questions
in the box, Chair.
Pardon?
There are currently no questions in the box.
Okay, thank you for that, Darryl. Members, has anyone got any questions they wish to ask? If not, we'll move to the debate. If anyone wishes to, well, we need to have it proposed and seconded first, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Well, I'll propose the recommendations which you have on the screen in front of you.
Thank you.
And ask for a seconder.
Thank you.
I'll second that, Chairman.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Councillor Bastone. Does anyone wish to say anything, add anything further? Because if not, we will then, the recommendations have been proposed and seconded, so we will move to the vote. Thank you, Darryl.
Thank you very much, Chair. So once again, members, we're voting on parts A and B on block, and the outcome of these will be shown in the published minutes. So once again, members, in alphabetical order, Councillor Abbott.
4.
Austin.
4.
Baldry.
Councillor 4.
Councillor Bastone.
4.
Birch.
4.
Brazil.
4.
Brown.
4.
Chow.
4.
Councillor Fox.
4.
Higgins.
4.
Hodgson.
4.
Holway.
4.
Hopwood.
4.
Councillor Jackson.
4.
Councillor Kemp.
4.
Long.
4.
Councillor McKay.
4.
O'Callaghan.
4.
Councillor Panel. Councillor Panel. Councillor Pearce.
4.
Councillor Pennington.
4.
Councillor Pringle.
4.
Councillor Reeve.
4.
Councillor Rose.
4.
Councillor Rowe.
4.
Councillor Smurden.
4.
Councillor Spencer.
4.
Councillor Taylor.
4.
Councillor Thomas.
4.
And last call for Councillor Panel.
I'm back. Thank you, Mr. White. 4, please.
Thank you, members. I'm pleased to say no connection issues, and that vote is therefore 29 in favour, and that is unanimously approved. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that. We were all present and correct that time, and maybe we're having problems because it's extremely windy. I don't know if that's got something to do with it or not. We now move on to item 8, which is business grants.
Chairman,
Yes.
before you go to that, can I ask retrospectively how Councillor Thomas and my votes were shown for item on the...
They're going to be we're going to put a piece in the minutes.
Yeah, okay. Because you couldn't have chucked us out of Follerton House, but Western Power managed to chuck us out of your meeting.
Yes, yeah, I understand. And it's really annoying. Yeah, I thoroughly sympathise with you.
If it can help, Chair, for Council Board, it will be reflected in the minutes. There will be a caveat in the minutes.
Thank you.
So we move on then to item 8, the business grants, which are on page 51 of the agenda. And Councillor Bastone, you are going to introduce this report, I believe. Councillor Bastone.
Thank you, Chairman. As of the beginning of this week,
South Hams has paid out over £9.5 million in grant payments since November, out of the £25 million of available funding. The simpler application forms that were instigated at the beginning of the year have proved successful, and those businesses that may be struggling with grant forms have a safety net provided by Business Information Point through our councillors and direct to the staff. Support is always available, and the feedback we have received from that support is excellent. The report sets out the background information on the many grants available to businesses and updates members on changes to the two discretionary schemes, the ARG and the LRSG Open. These two schemes have been adjusted to make a wider number of businesses eligible for them, to pay more grant to each applicant, as well as reducing the impact the business has to prove it has suffered to access them. This in response to low uptake through the November lockdown. Separately, the ARG policy proposes to make a greater amount of money available for business support in the form of strategic economic recovery projects and priorities. This is to ensure there is a sustained support for businesses as we move towards spring and hopefully reopening. The approach is aligned to many councils in Devon. I would just like to finish off the introduction. I said that we've had some superb feedback from businesses, and I'll read you out one short letter that we've received, and we received many of these. We would like to thank your amazing staff for their hard work throughout the pandemic, despite being under so much pressure. As a small family-run business, the last year has been indescribable, the same for many, no doubt. Whenever we have contacted you for advice, you were happy to advise and support us, and it really felt like someone cared. Based on your advice, we didn't give up, but managed to submit a claim form and have today been awarded some money, which has been gratefully received, as due to the pandemic, our profits, like most, sadly took a hit, but we have done everything possible to retain our hard-working staff, and of course this helps. And that's just one of many thank you letters we've received from businesses. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Baston. I will now throw it open to members, and members, I invite you to ask any questions. And the first question I've got appearing on the screen is from Councillor Abbott, please. Councillor Abbott.
Thank you. A couple of months ago, I raised the group of people who style themselves excluded UK. It's about 3 million people across the UK who fall between the gaps of the regulations. And I wonder, Councillor Baston, whether it's been possible to identify that we're addressing some of the needs of this unfortunate group of people.
Could I revert to Mr. Brooke on this, because obviously he's involved in the day-to-day workings of this.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Baston. Yes, we have, if you like, an excluded group of people themselves aren't represented with a direct sort of hotline, if you like, in. All we can do is respond to the queries and issues as they come to us, which we do. So they often come through by the members. They come through places like BIP, they come from a number of sources, and everybody is aligned to know that if there is an issue, to signpost it to the council, either by the members direct to me or to the team. So from our direct experience of the several thousand grants we've processed, if there is an issue, we always review it. We always try and find a way to pay the grant. So the culture is, if we can, we will. And in doing that and taking that approach, to be honest, our personal experience is that there isn't a large body of people that are sort of falling through the cracks. But of course, if they've fallen through the cracks really well, we might not know about them.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I have two questions to start with.
I'm sorry.
Councillor Pennington.
Yes, Councillor Pennington.
I have two questions to begin with. First of all, on I think it's on page 30. Yes, page 39, 5.10. The disquiet was expressed amongst food shops, which may have inadvertently ruled themselves out. First of all, what action is being taken to avoid that? And second, my second question is low numbers of applications for the original ORG scheme. And again, what action must be taken to boost up the uptake? And so I have those two questions to start with.
Chairman, would you like me to reply?
Yes, please, Mr. Brooke. Yes, please.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Pennington. So the challenge with the shops was a technical one, which was that the rules around whether you were mandated to close or whether you were not mandated to close were a little bit grey, because practical common sense approach didn't quite line up with the technical guidance. So some shops mistakenly closed thinking they had to, but actually they weren't technically obliged to close. And the guidance that we are obliged to follow was very clear that we are only allowed to pay businesses that were trading the day before the impact, before the lockdown started. So had they closed inadvertently a few days before, a few weeks before, a few months before, then they were then exempting themselves from the opportunity to get the grant, which of course is really unfair because they didn't do it, they did it with the best intentions. So the answer to the question is how are we addressing this? This paper is how we are addressing this, because the change we are making to our discretionary policies is to align the payment thresholds to the mandatory payments that they would have got had they not realized, had they stayed open and then closed when they were told to. So if you like, what we're doing is addressing that, paying the same across both schemes, discretionary and the mandatory ones. And as a result, they are no longer going to miss out. Forgive me, what was the second question? It was the low take-up, I believe.
Yeah, it was about the November low take-up. Do you want me to answer that, or will you?
Yes, Councillor Bastone, please do.
I did say in my introduction that we had changed the approach because of the low take-up during November, and we've made it easier for businesses to apply.
Does that help, Councillor Pennington?
Well, can you enlarge on that second answer, please? How have you made?
Chairman, would you like me to?
What way have you made it easier?
In summary, yes. Councillor, thank you, Chairman. So, we don't know why businesses weren't applying for the first ARG. It wasn't that lots of people applied and then we didn't pay them. It's just that not many businesses applied. So what we've done is everything I think you would want to do. So the lead has been on the BBC and made a big fuss about it, rightly so. She did a fantastic job supporting it and promoting it. We have direct emailed our database of all of the businesses. We've contacted everybody that had a grant awarded to them during the March lockdown to make sure they were aware. And then the technical bits that we've done is, as I say, we've reduced the impact they have to demonstrate they have suffered. So we are obliged to check that they have suffered an impact, because otherwise we're just paying money out to businesses that are okay. But we've made that impact threshold as small as is reasonable. So we did say, you've got to demonstrate a quite significant impact to your business. Now we're just saying, a marginal one, and we will be able to pay you a grant. We've also tweaked some of the technical elements so that businesses that would have felt like they missed out because they had a small retail element to their business, but the majority of their hereditament was in fact not customer facing. We've even amended the ARG policy so that they will get an equivalent amount to the one-off payments for this lockdown. So they are between £4,000 and £9,000. That's a significant grant that a very small number of businesses would have felt very hard done by that they missed out on that. So it's been multiple strands, allowing more businesses to apply, increasing the amount of money they get, notifying more businesses, a consistent and policy of communication, both Devon-wide and locally, and of course all the fantastic work that all the members have been doing with the local businesses in their patch. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
We're only on questions now, not on debate, are we?
No, not yet. No. We've got a little way to go. And
okay.
I've not actually got any more questions. Oh yes, I have. Councillor Smurden wanted to ask a question to Mr. Brooke, please. Councillor Smurden.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. Under 5.7, it says the change has been applied to the LRSG to allow greater access. A slight relaxation to the policy of not paying second homeowners from the LRSG has also been made. Should that not? I understand that was tightening up the regulations. I don't read that as a relaxation. Should that not be a tightening of the regulations?
Thank you, Councillor Smith, and Councillor Chairman. With your permission, I'll reply.
Certainly.
So there's the second homes don't, by and large, fall into the LRSG open category because they are all mandated to close. So it's a very, very, very peripheral issue, this. But there may be one or two second homes or accommodation providers that, for example, had key workers in them, or they were moving house and they had to rent somewhere. There's some very unusual but genuine reasons why that they still could be open, and if they are still open, they therefore would be able to apply for the LRSG open because they would have missed out on the LRSG closed. Okay, if you're with me so far, okay. Yeah, the original policy said, but if you are a second homeowner, we will not pay out the LRSG open grant to you. However, what we've now relaxed it to say is if you are a resident of Devon and your second home happens to be in the South Hams, we will pay you. So this is a very, very, very fringe issue because there's not really very many of them in this category. But of those that are, if they're Devon residents, they will have the benefit now of the LRSG open scheme, whereas previously they didn't.
Right. OK, thank you. And can I take this opportunity to commend you on your excellent grasp of the regulations? And I'm sure that at some stage or other we'll come up with a quiz or something, and we'll try and test you to find there must be something that you don't actually know. But anyway, well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith.
Thank you for that. I don't have any more questions in the box. So can I have a proposer and a seconder for the recommendations, please?
Thank you, Chairman.
We're not going to debate this first, please.
Hold on, no, we've got to have, it's got to be moved and seconded for the recommendations have to be approved, moved and seconded, and then we'll move into the debate.
Okay.
And I've got to carry on.
Thank you, Chairman. If I could move the recommendations as set out on page 51.
Thank you very much. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Pearce. So then we'll move on into the debate, and I've got move on to the debate. So does anyone wish to start the debate off? I've got.
I can, if you wish.
Okay, carry on then, Councillor Pennington.
Well, this item I've got some concerns with. This only appears to have been examined by one council member and one officer.
No.
And not determined democratically.
No.
And that is contrary to the excellent proposals that are going to come forward in the next item, item 9, review of democratic decision making. And so therefore, what I am going to suggest now is that this item in future, and I will be suggesting it under the next item, should at least be examined and discussed by the executive and also by the democratic process by the grants, business and grant scheme should be the executive, and also the overview and scrutiny panel. And then it becomes, more general and more democratic. I can't get away with just 2 people out of 31 making decisions on behalf of the council. That's what in reality happens.
And they are your views, right? I've got 2 people who wish to. I've got speak, or I've got Councillor Hodgson who wishes to propose an amendment. Councillor Hodgson, would you like to do so, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, it's regarding it's recommendation 5, and I just wanted to add an amendment to it, which is as it stands, but to add at the end, but only if an urgent decision that cannot be only if an urgent decision that cannot await a democratic response is needed.
In other words, we're going to chuck democracy out. That's not unusual these days.
So, Chair, if I can help, we've had an amendment.
Please. It would appear, Councillor Hodgson, that you don't have a seconder. Is that correct, Darryl?
That's correct, Chair.
Okay. So then I've got another Councillor Birch wishes to propose an amendment. Councillor Birch.
Oh, thank you very much. I sent this proposed amendment to Mr. White late yesterday afternoon. I don't know whether it's possible for him to put it on the screen, but I'll ask Councillor Baldry to second it before I put forward the case for the amendment.
I am happy to second.
Thank you. I've also got Chris Brooke. You wanted to speak, please? When did you wish to speak?
Thank you, Chair. My apologies for joining this part. I know it's not appropriate. Just with respect to the Councillor Hodgson's suggestions, just so we're clear, the policies around, the schemes of the around the grants are already, if you like, delegated powers, which is why the recommendations 1 and 2 are to note. So should there be a change and a new scheme that comes down the track that requires a democratic decision, absolutely, it needs to have a democratic decision, and therefore you can amend the final recommendation. But I wouldn't want us to be confused about the powers that we are able to exercise in order to respond in a timely, which is i.e. very quick fashion, to the grants as they come down. So there's 2 things perhaps here.
Thank you for that, Mr. Brooks. So we've had the amendment which has been proposed and seconded, so we will move into the debate on the amendment. So I believe Councillor Birch, you wish to speak?
Yes,
now?
please. Yes.
Thank you.
Before I speak, is it possible for Mr. White to put the proposed amendment on the screen, or is that not possible?
It should be there.
Yes, it's there.
Oh, well, I can't see it, but never mind. Okay, it's on the screen. Okay. Well, as you'll see, this is an amendment to recommendation 3 and the addition of item 6, and it concerns the matter of the additional restriction grants. If I could refer members to paragraph 1.3 of the report, which states that the ARG funding is designed to provide wider business support, and it then goes on to say there are immediate issues and measures set out in section 6. If I could also refer members to paragraph 1.4, which says that whilst the funding for ARG is up until March 2022, it is considered essential, and I emphasise the word essential, to commit to wider business support activities from this point forward, especially given the relatively positive outcome of the COVID vaccination programme. Could I just point out to members that the Council has received 2 amounts in respect of the ARG. Towards the end of last year, the Council received 1.740 million, 1,740,000, and that has been further topped up by a further payment of 772,000. So in respect of ARG, this council has received £2.5 million. The report shows that payments out of this fund started in November, and up until the beginning of this month, the council had only paid out of this fund £237,000, less than 10% of the £2.5 million that the council has received. Now, as the report states, this money was given to us, and I quote, to provide business support. And I believe that we need to be more proactive in seeking to achieve this aim. The recommendation on the paper is to put £500,000 of this fund to, and I quote, strategic economic recovery projects and priorities. In my view, and bearing in mind the amount of money that we've received, I believe this to be insufficient, and my proposal is that it be increased to £900,000 as opposed to £500,000. And there is a precedent for this in that East Devon, as it's stated in the report, have set aside £950,000 for strategic economic recovery projects and priorities. So bearing in mind that we have only spent just under £250,000 out of the £2.5 million, my proposal is that we utilise £900,000 rather than the £500,000 towards immediate strategic economic recovery projects and priorities, and that the proposals for the expenditure of this sum be put to the next meeting of the executive after consulting members. So the monies are needed by the local economy now, and the last thing we want to see is for them to be languishing in reserves.
Yeah.
So if my proposal is accepted, then this will still leave £1,350,000 to be distributed by Mr. Brooke and his team, which in my view, and looking at the previous record, is more than sufficient. So I move the amendment to the recommendation. Thank you.
I will second that.
No, it's already been seconded, Councillor Pennington, by Councillor Baldry. Councillor Baldry, would you like to speak next, please?
Yeah, I shall be very brief. I support everything that Councillor Birch has said in his introduction, and I want to stress that as far as I'm concerned, there are businesses in all our wards who are desperate to get this money to them as quickly as possible. I want to acknowledge the enormous work done by Mr. Brooke and his whole team on getting this money, but we need to get the money out of the door a lot quicker and in slightly larger amounts. And the whole point is, as Councillor Pennington has already said, for goodness sake, involve your biggest asset, which is your members. Let the members get involved, devise a means whereby members can get involved in identifying and make the final decision, come back to the next executive. Chairman, I've got things I want to say on the substantive motion, but I shall save those for later.
Thank you. Thank you. I think the next speaker is Councillor Pearce, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'm not in favour of this amendment, and I'll tell you why. We have got this money, and this money is for businesses in the district. We have top sliced that amount by 20%, and we have also in the revenue budget voted large sums of money which we hope will be regenerative and help to help employment. In the capital budget plan, we have several projects for building new employment units. There is a lot we can do, but this money is primarily there to help businesses directly and has to last until March next year. Now, we have great hopes for the future. We hope that the vaccination programme is going to help things along their way and that life will return more to normal. But I'm afraid at the moment we don't know that. And until we are quite certain that that's the way we're going to go, I would rather this money was there to help businesses that already exist actually survive, because that's what it's there for. I can tell you that the Lib Dem administration in Cornwall has already given out all their discretionary budgets and are now blaming the government that there isn't any more money, when they were told that that money was to last until March 2022 in the first place. And I think there's a bit of this going on here. The Lib Dems can say, oh yeah, well we want more money, and we want more money on projects and all the rest of it. But in fact, we have set aside £500,000. Now, £500,000 out of a budget of nearly 2 million seems perfectly reasonable to me, when the main purpose of that budget is to support businesses that are already there. It's also too early to be deciding that we're going to take effectively top slice nearly 40% of that fund when we don't know what's going to happen in the future. Now, we can always, as things advance, and when we've spent the £500,000, and if we look around and see that there isn't a great demand at that time, then we can easily take more money out of that pot if we have further projects that we want to do. But at the moment, I would not like it to be said around the South Hams that the council has appropriated £900,000 for things that it thinks it ought to be doing, when there could be businesses out there that need that money. And on that basis alone, I will not be voting for this amendment. And I hope that other councillors will see the sense of the approach I am taking, which I have to say is supported by officers as well, because they have a good feeling for what's going on out there as well as us, and will not vote for it either. I regret to have to say that, in particular to Councillor Baldry, because he's been so supportive of the main budget, but I'm afraid that's how I feel on this particular amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Pearce. Is there anyone else who wishes to contribute to the debate on the amendment, please?
Councillor Hopwood, Chair.
Oh, right, I don't seem to have got her, but Councillor Hopwood, yes, and maybe.
Thank you, Chair. I think I'm putting my hand up, and I think I may be having to put something in the chat box, so maybe I'm doing it the wrong way round. Apologies.
I haven't got you where
I should be. I'm never where I should be.
Fine, carry on.
Thank you, Chairman. So I just want to be really clear about this, Councillor Birch. Not only do you want to put another £400,000 into the fund, without any time for us to consider this proposal, you also want it to know what it will be spent on, and you want that decided by the next executive on the 11th of March. That's just an impossibility on its own. Let's think about the money we have allocated to the recovery plan and climate change and biodiversity emergency first. Wait and see what is left, but put our businesses first and not empty our pot. I feel, and I'm sad to say this, Chairman, but I feel this is a typical Lib Dem tactic, spending money before a scheme has finished, not thinking about the consequences of the pot being empty. Businesses have until March 2022 to claim this money. What's the hurry? Or do you just want do you want a Devon Cornwall County Council Lib Dem run scenario, which has been a disaster for businesses? So there is no way that I can support this amendment, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hopwood, for your views. The next speaker is Councillor Smurden, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, we've trusted our team of officers, our excellent team of finance officers, to handle all this grant money since March. And we've trusted them to make the right decisions, and I think we should continue to do so. Yeah, it's appearing, it does appear that Cornwall has overspent this grant money. We must make sure that we don't also. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I don't have any more speakers, I believe, so I'm going to ask Councillor Bastone if he would like to speak, please. I believe it's correct procedure.
Chair, it is, but before you do, Councillor Long's just registered to speak.
Yeah, come on, Councillor Long, you're just a little bit late, but I'll allow you to speak. Come on, your turn next.
Chairman, thank you. I have to say that there are many businesses out there I know of who have yet to make claims. They, you know, are not sure what they can do, how they can do it, the structure of their business, because they're seasonal. They don't feel that they particularly hit the policies, loss of income, but we're still in a very, very uncertain period as to when businesses will or will not be able to open, how the level of their expenditure will take place. It's very, very uncertain. And I'm not sure about the areas where the funding could be spent or should be spent. I think, you know, that's still very undecided. And I think until we really know that the money, all of the money that is required by businesses in the South Hams under this area of funding has actually gone out, and we do not have any businesses out there who are struggling, I do believe it's too early to move a considerable sum of money into this area. I can understand the reasoning, some of the reasoning behind it, but I would have said it's some months too early. I think everybody's getting a little bit gung-ho about the vaccination and what's going to happen. I think there are businesses out there who are going to be struggling still. We don't know how that's going to happen. So unfortunately, I can't support this amendment. I understand the reasoning behind it, but I believe it's too early. I think we've got to be in a position to be able to, if we do not need the money and it can't be pushed out directly to the businesses that need it now and in the coming months to keep their business going and keep the employment going, I don't think we can do it now. I think we need to leave it a few months before we can actually make this decision. If the money is sitting there and we can move it, then certainly move it. But I think we also need to know quite clearly what we're going to be spending it on, and it needs to be very directly supporting businesses. I think some of the things that are being suggested aren't necessarily the sort of thing that businesses would want out there. So unfortunately, at this particular time, I can't support the amendment.
Okay, thanks for your remarks, Councillor Long. Now, Councillor Baston, I'm going to move to you.
Thank you, Jim. I'd like to thank Councillor Long for his comments because they were pretty much in line with my summing up on this issue. But I would like to say this amendment is premature at this moment in time for the business community. We are already topsizing 20%, as the leader said, for the council to utilise as support, for which we still have to make a plan. To take more at this time will give the wrong impression to businesses. Businesses should have the first call on these funds through the grant process, as emphasised by Councillor Long. The fund still has a long way to go, with the end date not until March 2022. If at the end of this year there are still sufficient funds left, further funds can be drawn down at that time. It was both Cornwall and East Devon have been mentioned, and I would just say that East Devon received far more funds than us because it was population based and in proportion to and is very much in proportion to our proposal. I repeat, businesses in the South Hams have the first call on these funds up till March 2022, and we should give them every opportunity to draw down those funds. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you for that. So I think we could now move to the vote on the amendment, the additional recommendation amendment. Is that right?
That's
Sarah?
correct, Chair. So members, we're now voting on the amendment, which is shown in red font on the screen. For Councillor Pennington's benefit, who's obviously following the meeting via phone, Councillor Pennington, the amendment is to revise the figure in Part 3 to read 900,000, and there's an additional recommendation in Part 6 that reads as follows: that the proposed method, means and timing of the allocation and expenditure of the sum at recommendation 3 be determined by the executive at its next meeting following consultation with members. So therefore, members, we are voting on the amendment as per the screens. Councillor Abbott.
For.
Austin.
I'm against the amendment, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Baldry?
For.
Councillor Bastone?
Against.
Councillor Birch?
For.
Councillor Brazil?
For.
Councillor Brown?
Against.
Councillor Chown?
Against.
Councillor Foss?
Against.
Councillor Hawkins?
Against.
Councillor Hodgson?
For.
Councillor Holway? Councillor Holway? I'll come back. Councillor Hopwood?
Sorry, 4.
Oh, 4, thank you. Councillor Hopwood?
Against. Do you want to check what Councillor Holway's just said? I think he might have got his wrong.
Yeah, he was for the amendment. I think that's what he said.
Councillor Holway, can you just clarify your vote, please?
Oh, sorry. Sorry. I'm against this one. I'm sorry.
It's the amendment. Thank you. Councillor Hopwood?
Against.
Sorry, against. Councillor Hopwood?
Yes, sorry, against.
For.
Kemp?
Abstain.
Councillor Long?
Against.
Councillor McKay?
Abstain.
Councillor Callaghan?
For.
Councillor Panel?
For.
Councillor Pearce?
Against.
Pennington? Councillor Pennington?
For.
Councillor Pringle?
Against.
Councillor Reeve?
Against.
Councillor Rose?
For.
Councillor Rowe?
Against.
Councillor Smurden?
Against.
Councillor Spencer?
Against.
Councillor Taylor?
Against.
Councillor Thomas?
For.
Thank you, members. That's therefore 11 votes in favour with 16 against and 2 abstentions, and the amendment is therefore declared lost. Thank you, members.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Hodgson, who has raised a point of order.
Yes, I have, Chairman. Thank you. I'm very concerned that another member should interfere with the voting procedure and actually ask a councillor to reconsider what he's just voted. It's either predetermination that we're witnessing, or there's some party whip going on, but I don't think that was appropriate at all. I was very concerned about that. Can we have a comment from David Fairbairn, please?
That's exactly who I was going to ask. Yes, Mr. Fairbairn, please. Could you comment on this? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I must admit I didn't quite catch what the original vote was by the councillor. So I understand it was right to question whether or not it was heard clearly.
I heard it very clearly. I heard very clearly Councillor Holway said 4.
Well, whatever, if I could come in and interpret it, wouldn't have made any difference to the final vote anyway.
I don't think that's the point, Chairman. I don't think somebody else should be interfering in how somebody votes. Was there predetermination?
I couldn't answer that question.
Chairman, could I come?
It doesn't matter about predetermination.
Chairman, could I come in at this point? I think councillors around this meeting are prepared to accept that Councillor Holway, who is a very decent councillor, may well have made a mistake because his internet dropped out. And on an afternoon like this, I think all councillors would sympathise with that. I would maybe ask in return for that consideration that council might consider whether or not Councillor Baldry and I would be allowed to support the budget, since we missed the vote for exactly the same reason, i.e. a glitch in technology.
Yes, I think we did point out that your votes were going to be included in the minutes. I'm not sure about that. I'm sure Mr. White and Mr. Fairbairn can advise us on both issues as we seem to have reached this point in time. Is that possible, Mr. Fairbairn?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. In terms of the inclusion in the minutes of members who had lost connectivity and therefore were unable to vote, because the regulations say that a member is only deemed to be present whilst they're connected. They obviously weren't present for the vote, therefore the minutes can't actually include their vote. But what it can do will include a note to indicate why their vote wasn't there. Because otherwise we couldn't just simply say, well, they would have voted in this way, wouldn't they? It's a question of fact whether or not they voted or not. In terms of Councillor Hodgson's point, it's a matter for you, Chairman, ultimately, as to whether or not there was interference with the vote. I was listening, but I didn't quite catch what Councillor Holloway actually said in the first instance. It wasn't entirely clear. It may well be that it was clear to other members, but ultimately, he could what he could have said. You know, I accept that he got it out. Could equally have said that he wanted to come back because he had made a mistake himself.
Thank you for that. Well, as I see it, I didn't actually hear Councillor Holloway's vote particularly well, and as it wouldn't have made any difference to the final result of the vote, whichever way he voted, I think that it should be as it stands at present. We could debate this for a long time, but I feel that we're wasting time. We need to move on. So can we please move on?
Okay, I'd just like it recorded that I've been concerned about the procedure because I think it was coercive. Anyway, that's another matter. Okay, fair enough. Right.
Chairman, briefly, Councillor Thomas has made the point. It was a mistake. Yes. The greater mistake was Councillor Hopwood when she said, would Councillor Holloway like to reconsider his vote? And she was out of order.
You're absolutely right there. I will go along with that. It was not for Councillor Hopwood to interfere.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't think
the point I was making. Thank you.
And I don't particularly like Councillor Brazil's remarks. You should not be putting remarks in the chat channel. How convenient, reminds me of a football manager. Well, I don't think that was necessary, Councillor Brazil. Anyway, we'll move on to the recommendations now as before you. So do we wish to debate that any further, or are we going to take the vote on it?
There is nobody. Councillor Baldry, which is speaking on substantive motion, Chair.
Councillor Baldry, would you like to speak, please?
Very briefly, and just as an observation, political harmony didn't last that long, did it? And I think it was a great pity that Councillor Pearce and, more importantly, Councillor Hopwood tried to make an attack, a political attack, which I thought was not in the best interest of the people of South Hams, but that's not what I was going to make. The more important point was to go back to what Councillor Abbott said about the excluded people.
I'm losing you, Councillor Baldry.
Can you not hear me?
Not very well. You're very disjointed.
I've been getting a lot of feedback all meeting. Do you want me to leave it? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah,
I can hear you.
Continue, Chairman.
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Just
Keith,
keep your head still. Keep your head still, Keith. Don't keep moving around.
Well, us great orators such as yourself always move their head around, Jackie.
Just keep your lips closed, Keith.
I am speaking. If you can't hear me, tell me now. I'm just going to say, going back to what Councillor Abbott said about people excluded, I have enormous concern for people like mobile hairdressers, and goodness all knows we all need our haircut. People who have mobile dog grooming, and also in particular about driving instructors. Driving instructors who are self-employed and work from home are in desperate needs of funds. Some of them are going to cease to exist, and after we get out of this pandemic, there's going to be an enormous list of people desperate for driving lessons in order to take the driving test. And I think they are, Mr. Brooks said there weren't many. I think there are an awful lot of people in that position who don't have premises, but who operate in their own vehicles and normally go around to people's homes. Thank you, Chairman.
Everybody, I've got a message from Councillor Rose, Chairman. She's dropped out. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Vice Chair.
Yeah, yeah, Councillor Rose has dropped out, so we'll have to wait a second to see if we can get her back in again. Can I remind everybody, please, to switch off their mics when they're not speaking, because I've had nothing but rustling of papers all afternoon.
I've dropped out. I'm sorry, I'm back now, I think, but I dropped out.
Right, okay.
Daryl, where are we?
If I can help, Chair, Councillor Baldry has taken the opportunity to speak, and Councillor Pearce is next.
Right, okay. I haven't got the chat box now. Hold on. Councillor Baldry's finished, and it's Councillor Pearce next. Is that right?
That's correct, Chair.
Okay. Okay. I'm sorry about that. I thought I wasn't going to get back in.
You're currently muted, Chair. Sorry, Chair, you're still on mute, Chair. That's better, Chair, you're off mute.
Thank you. There's a lot going on here, which shouldn't be. Can you hear me?
Yeah. We can hear you, Chair. Councillor Pearce is next.
Right. We got Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Chairman. I just thought it would be appropriate at this point to endorse what Councillor Basten said when he introduced this paper, and to thank the team of officers who have been paying out these grants so much on behalf of both members and the people who are receiving the grants. We've had a team of people who've been working 7 days a week and long into the evenings to get these grants out. I have to say that the contact officer we've got within the council, who members go to for support, has been absolutely brilliant, because I'm getting things in every day from people all over the area asking me questions that I'm not able to answer because they're quite technical and quite, sort of beyond my knowledge of all these grants. And I think they are doing a fantastic job. I've only today had a really nice thank you letter from somebody in my ward who is so grateful for the team, and they were actually genuinely surprised to get the amount of money they did. Now, for the business the size they are, it wasn't a huge amount of money, but they are so grateful. And I think from some of the remarks that were made earlier on, we should put Mr. Brooke forward for mastermind, and his special subject can be the grants. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak on this item, or shall we? Oh, we've got Councillor Kemp.
I'd just like to say how helpful Steve Damon's been. Actually, he's been absolutely brilliant and helped me out with a few as well. So, and got good results. So, thanks to him.
Thank you. And then Councillor Foss, I believe.
No, thank you, Chairman.
Right, Councillor?
No, I came in when you weren't there, but no, I don't want to speak now.
Right.
Thank you.
Oh, right. Okay. Thank you. So we move to the vote then. Is that okay? Correct?
Councillor McKay's put a message in the chat box for you, Duce. I'm not sure what it means.
It says poor, so I don't know what's poor, Councillor. Okay.
May I speak? Councillor Thomas has indicated they've got another power cut.
Oh God. Right. Okay. Is Councillor Baldry, is he cut off too?
I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Yes, he is. Yes, both Keith and Dan are gone.
I think we're all in danger of
Chairman, it's Councillor Thomas. I'm back in on the phone, and I think Councillor Baldry should be on the phone again any minute.
Right, thank you. Is there anyone else who's missing before we move to the vote?
Not that we can see. I'm just checking the list. It doesn't appear so. It's just Councillor Baldry and Thomas. Chair.
Councillor Thomas has said, oh, he's dropped out again.
No, I'm still here, Chair. I can hear you. I'm on the phone.
You're still here, right? Good, good. So just Councillor Baldry, yes?
That's correct, Chair.
Right. We're not having a very good day today, are we? Councillor Brazil, he's saying that he's unstable. Yeah, I think mine's unstable too, to be honest. Yes.
We've actually had another power cut again, Chairman, which is why we were off.
Right. Do you think it's to do with the high winds?
Rose, I'm on the phone.
Right, okay, then can we now move to the vote then, Darryl, please? I think everyone is here in one form or another.
So for those members who've dialed in, we're now voting on the substantive motion, which is parts 1 to 5 and is as per the report recommendations. So in alphabetical order, members, Councillor Abbott.
4.
Thank you, Councillor Austin.
4.
Councillor Baldry.
4.
Councillor Bastone.
4.
Councillor Birch.
4.
Zill.
4.
Councillor Brown.
4.
Councillor Chow.
4.
Councillor Foss.
4.
Councillor Hawkins.
4.
Councillor Hodgson.
4.
Councillor Holway.
4.
Councillor Hopwood.
4.
Councillor Jackson.
4.
Councillor Kemp.
4.
Councillor Long.
4.
Councillor McKay.
4.
Councillor Callaghan. Councillor Callaghan.
4.
Councillor Panel.
4.
Councillor Pearce.
4.
Councillor Pennington.
4.
Councillor Pringle.
4.
Councillor Reeve.
4.
Councillor Rose.
4.
Councillor Rowe.
4.
Councillor Burden.
4.
Councillor Spencer.
4.
Councillor Taylor.
4.
And Councillor Thomas.
4.
Thank you, members. That is therefore 29 votes for, and that is therefore declared unanimously approved. Thank you, members.
Thank you for that. Thanks, Darryl, for your assistance. We now move on to item 8, which is enhancing the democratic decision-making process. And Councillor Pearce will introduce this paper, which is on page 85 of the agenda.
Yes, Chairman, don't wish to intervene, but we've been going for 2 hours. Is there a chance of a 5-minute break?
Well, I was going to maybe have a break after we've concluded this item, if we could do this item first.
Fair enough, Chairman. Up to you.
If we have too many breaks, we could well be here for quite a long time. So we've had quite a few breaks. I know members haven't been able to leave their monitors, etc., but we have lost quite a bit of time through no fault of our own. So we'll move on to item 9.
Thank you.
Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Chairman. I believe we've already come a good way at Southams in fixing many of the organisational bottlenecks on the officer side and achieving good channel shift with improving IT systems. So making a change to the member decision-making process is one of the last areas of the council to have a revised makeover since P18. This report has been written after a good deal of consultation by the Chief Executive with all members of the Council. Every member was given the opportunity of discussing the proposed changes, even if a few individual members may have been unable to attend their group meeting. A clear consensus has emerged for an inclusive approach where all members have an opportunity to contribute to the Council's decision-making process. Even before I became leader, I was conscious that meetings were sometimes not running in the best order to achieve efficient decision-making and the best use of the officer resource available. I'm very pleased that the new Chief Executive and I came to an early consensus on this, and that following full consultation with members, this paper is the result. I believe that the new arrangements, once instituted through a revised meeting schedule and appropriate revisions and updating of the Council's constitution, will provide a much more satisfactory way of working for all members, and that in particular, all the members of the Overview and Scrutiny Panel will feel far more motivated and empowered by their new style of programme of work, rather than spending their time trying to anticipate every move of the executive, which in turn will not feel its agenda is continually being preempted by the overview and scrutiny panel. The new plans are set out in section 4 of the agenda paper and is covered by recommendation 1. Recommendation 4 refers to the revised calendar of meetings, which will include 6 scheduled full council meetings a year, including the annual council. The 3 parts of recommendation 2 refer to specific paragraphs of the report, but I would here particularly like to refer to 2B, where I need to make it clear that the purpose of paragraph 414 is to develop proposals for an enhanced for public and non-executive members for member participation, which will provide the opportunity for members to give notice of questions at the executive meetings. These proposals will form part of the report to Council on the 25th of March. I'm sure, Chairman, our Chief Executive would be pleased to confirm this if I could momentarily turn to him for his endorsement of this. Is Andy there?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, very happy to confirm that that was the intention of 4.14, and it will absolutely
carry on, Mr. Bates.
He's there.
Thank you very much, Leader. Happy to confirm that that was absolutely the intention of 4.14 and will form part of the recommendations back to Council on the 25th of March. Thank you.
Thanks. Chairman, I'll just conclude. I haven't got much more now. However, regardless of how we as members will be affected by the new ways of taking decisions as set out in this paper, let us all remember that we need to ensure sound governance so our residents can benefit from the results of the sound decisions we take. Members will recall that the LGA peer challenge we had in late 2018 recommended a review of governance structures because they too, amongst other things, had detected tensions in the present decision-making systems. The proposals here are not some wizard new wheeze, but rather the tried and tested procedures of the best-run councils in the country. Of course, we want to be one of them, and my vision is that we shall definitely be one of them before this administration is concluded. Thank you, Chairman.
Are you there, Chair?
I'm on the phone.
Have we lost our Chairman?
I can't speak because I'm on the phone.
Councillor Rowe, are you there? She's shown as on the call.
Darryl, she said she's dropped out.
Thanks, Vice Chair. Are you happy just to field the questions at the minute, Vice Chair?
Yeah, I can do that. That's fine. Where are we?
Councillor McKay is the first question.
Oh, yes, I've got it. Yeah. Councillor McKay, would you like to ask your question, please?
Yes, during the consultations that took place to the various group meetings, so one of the things that I raised and other people have raised, I think, was the prospect of having a extended or the senior leadership team question and answer sessions for members. I can't find any reference to that in this paper. Is that still the intention?
Happy to respond, Chairman, if you'd like me to.
Yes.
Yeah, please do, Andy. Yeah.
Yes,
paragraph 2.9 refers, Councillor McKay. It's absolutely the intention that we will be introducing a question and answer session with the senior leadership team. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, sorry, I didn't see that. Thanks.
Hello, I'm back, I think.
Okay, Rose. We've just taken one question from Councillor McKay, which has been answered by Andy, so that's fine. Do you want to carry on?
No, because I can't see everybody yet. You
okay.
Carry on.
Anybody else got any questions?
Okay.
No. So we move. Who's going to move these recommendations, and then we'll go into the debate.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Vice Chairman. I move the recommendations as shown on the screen and as shown at page 85 and 89 of the agenda papers, 1 to 4. And I think Councillor Baldry is going to second me.
And I second it via the telephone.
Thank you both. Right, I have
Councillor Panel was first, Vice Chair.
Councillor Panel to make a comment, please.
Thank you. I hope members, there is another item on the order paper, a motion by myself and Councillor Abbott, which I'll explain in a moment, but I hope members will understand that motion was submitted before this paper was published and we didn't know what it would contain. I'm very pleased that the two key issues in our motion are addressed in this: increasing the frequency of meetings of full council. Sorry, I just put my camera on. And the ability of members to serve notice of questions at executive meetings. I was disappointed that while the recommendations spell out the desire to give the public the power to submit questions to full council, the issue of members' questions to the executive is only referred to obliquely in the reference to 4.14. Up till now, it seems perverse that while the public can already submit questions to meetings of the executive and scrutiny, perhaps up to 16 times a year, we, the members charged with representing our residents, may currently only submit questions to meetings of the full council, which at present is only 4 times a year. And I think that really does hinder our duty of raising important issues with a responsible portfolio in a timely fashion. I'm pleased this is being addressed, and I'm pleased to hear what Councillor Pearce said, that there's an assurance that those will come forward at our March meeting to remedy this situation regarding members' questions. Is it possible to have that placed in the minutes, please?
Will do. Thank you, Councillor Panel.
And therefore, with my seconder, Councillor Abbott's consent, I'm very happy to withdraw the motion that was placed for later. If you could just show that, please, Mr. White.
The motion should be on the screen now, Councillor Panel.
Yeah. So this was, as I said, drafted and submitted before the report was made. So with that assurance that it's minuted that the item regarding councillors' questions is included, I'm very happy to withdraw if Councillor Abbott is minded to do the same.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Kemp next.
Well, it's kind of already been said. I mean, I'm just been reading through it, and I can't understand why this isn't a thing already. Actually, as obviously we were all elected to voice our residents' opinions. So yeah, I think it's good.
Right, thank you, Councillor Birch.
Thank you. I support this recommendation, and in doing so, thank the Chief Executive for the time and effort he has put into consulting with the members prior to bringing this report to full council. The peer review that was conducted a while back identified areas within our democratic process that required attention. And at the time of its issue, I was sceptical of progress being made to address the concerns that were raised in the peer review. The Chief Executive has addressed these concerns, and the report sets out the way forward. And I look forward to seeing the changes set out in the report being implemented. Once again, thanks for the helpful report and the way forward.
Thank you, Councillor Birch. Councillor Hodgson.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd actually like to, I should have put a proposed amendment in there. Under item 2, I'd like to propose a 2D, which is that we issue the draft full council minutes to members within a week of the meeting and publish as soon as an appropriate calling period has expired.
Okay. Darryl, can you give me advice on that, please?
Sorry, Chair, I'm on mute. I'm just typing in the words again. It'd be helpful if Councillor Hodgson could just repeat it as I'm typing. Thank you.
If you'd like to repeat those, Councillor Hodgson, please.
Yeah. Issue the draft full council minutes to members within a week of the meeting and publish as soon as an appropriate call-in period has expired.
Right. Okay. Have you a seconder for that?
Happy to second.
Who's that, please?
Councillor Rose, seconding.
Right. Thank you. Can I have advice from officers that they feel that that is feasible and possible to do before we go forward with that added one? It's no point in having something if it's not physically possible to be able to do that, is what I'm trying to say. I understand where Councillor Hodgson's coming from to a certain extent, but is that feasibly possible for our officers to achieve that? That's what I'm asking.
I mean, if I can say, Vice Chair, I mean, it's looking at a report coming back on the 25th of March, and I mean, I'm sure that between me, Mr. Bates, and Mr. Powell, we can look into this and make sure the report covers it off if it is the wish of the meeting. I mean, reference to call in. I mean, obviously, there's no call in of council decisions. Call in only related to executive decisions. But I mean, if it's the wish that's included, if you like, almost in a terms of reference, I'm sure we can look at that as part of the wider review, unless Mr. Bates or Mr. Powell think differently.
If you'd like me to come in, Vice Chairman, I think it's just a question of practicality, really, in terms.
Well, that's what I was asking about. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it really is a question of practicality. Clearly, there's a benefit in those minutes being made available as early as possible to members. I absolutely understand and appreciate that. I think without putting a fixed timescale on it, that would be a reasonable endeavour. But I think it's as much to do with the practicalities of Darryl's team in being able to cover all of our meetings for us and to achieve that in a speedy turnaround. So thank you, Chairman.
Well, that's exactly the question I was asking. I understand where Councillor Hodgson's coming from. In fact, what we'll have to do then is put this to that separate one to the vote, the amendment to the vote first. Yes.
We're currently debating it, Chair, because it has been seconded.
Okay.
And
okay.
Councillor Pearce and Councillor Baldry.
No.
It's a question first, working backwards. Councillor Smurden has asked the question about how does that differ from what we do now. I mean, the answer to that would be, Chair, was we're not bound internally by any performance measures, as Mr. Bates rightly says. We try and turn them around as soon as we can do. But whereas, for example, for executive meetings, we've got to publish them 48 hours after the exec meeting's held. We're, of course, at the minute, we're not either internally or externally bound by any time constraints on publishing draft council minutes.
Okay. I've got Councillor Baldry wants to speak, and then I'll let Councillor Pearce with the question.
Can I just say that Councillor Rose did second it? I think Darryl said
yeah,
that
yes, I picked up on that. That's fine. That was done.
I
heard that.
I don't want to speak on the amendment. I want to speak on the substantive motion, but Councillor Pearce does want to ask a question about the amendment. I want to speak after this.
At what point do I speak on the amendment?
Technically, Councillor Hodgson, as a proposer of the amendment, should open up the debate on the amendment, Chair.
Okay.
That's what I'd like to do, if I may.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Open up the debate. That's fine. Go ahead, Councillor Hodgson.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to say that, I mean, I've been after the full council minutes from December meeting for months, and I finally got them just about 10 days ago. I think Darryl will back me up on that because I've been emailing him asking for them. And I don't know why I wasn't given them. I mean, I've had trouble with my emails, so I apologise if he's sent me an email saying you can't have them, but I haven't seemed to have any reply. And I think it's actually really important that we are able to sort of look at the minutes and know exactly what was agreed. Because I mean, I don't know about others, but I go and report back to the parish councils about what's been going on. But I like to know that I've got the minutes, so I've got the exact wording or whatever was agreed. So I just feel it's something that's quite important, and I don't think it's acceptable to wait nearly 3 months or 2 months for 4 minutes that, you know, are important decisions that we take. But I just wanted to add that I do welcome the rest of these points that have been raised at on this recommendation on the item 9. So yeah, I just wanted to add that one in because I think it would be really helpful to all of us as members. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Pearce, you want to ask a question on that?
Well, Vice Chairman, my question has largely been answered. So may I make a comment or not at this stage?
Can
I speak to the amendment?
We are debating the amendment, Chair.
We are debating the amendment.
We are debating it, yeah.
Okay. Well, look, I don't think this is a bad idea, but I think, like all things, it ought to be done with due consideration. And once again, I think deciding policy like this on the hoof by an amendment at council is not the way to do it. Now, fortunately, we have another council meeting at the end of March, and fortunately, we have yet another paper with the fine grain of the decision making in it at that meeting. So what I was going to suggest to Councillor Hodgson is that we actually look into this and see how practical it is for the Democratic Services team to actually produce these minutes within a week or 10 days or even 2 weeks, but that would be soon after a council meeting rather than the 6 weeks you've had to wait, and bring it back as a proper proposal as part of the recommendations to the paper in March. And I was going to ask Councillor Hodgson if she would be willing to consider that as an alternative. Because I don't want to vote against this, but I want to be absolutely certain that officers can actually achieve what we're asking them to do. And I think we need to look into what their schedule is and how the meetings fall and all the rest of it, because I do not want officers writing up minutes at 2 o'clock in the morning or something like that.
That, Councillor Pearce, was why I asked the question, was it practical to do so? I understand where Councillor Hodgson is coming from, and I will ask her the question, would you consider what Councillor Pearce has said to you? It is evident that you've got quite a lot of support for this, but to bring it in then and give it due consideration and do it with the officers' time frame in view as well.
What I would accept is that actually I amend my own amendment to the council considers publishing its draft minutes of full council meetings within a week of the meeting being held. And that would be, I mean, you don't need to put it in there, but with an understanding that at the next month's meeting that we take a decision on this.
The council considers publishing its draft minutes of full council meetings within a week of the meeting. Yeah, okay. Right. Okay. Have you got a seconder for that?
It's already been seconded, Vice
Right.
Chair.
Okay.
And Councillor Rose is next.
Councillor Rose.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds like this is going to be brought forward to the next meeting, but just to say that, like, probably about 2 or 3 times I've been in the situation of suddenly wanting to refer back to the minutes after a meeting and not being able to, and having therefore been able to, not been able to give as full a report as I would have liked to a town or parish council meeting. So yeah, just wanted to say that, and to say that, of course, within the means of officers, and not to you know, it's not maybe the most important thing that we do, but it is something that would be really helpful. So yeah, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Pano.
Yes, I was just going to, before Councillor Hodgson amended her own amendment, I was going to suggest maybe we could get a consensus by adding in D that the council considers the time proposed revisions to the time scale in which draft minutes of full council meetings are published, and then that can all be gone into the practicalities examined in light of the members' wishes that we would like to see them more quickly. I don't know if Councillor Hodgson wants to stick with what she's got or with what I've suggested, but I think there's a sort of consensus, but I think it needs to be a little bit more open for it to be considered.
Councillor Baldry.
Yeah. Thank you, Vice Chairman. First of all, thanks to whoever took the trouble to get me back on the telephone for the meeting, so I could hear most, but not all, of the debate. I'm speaking both on the amendment and on the main paper. just to say, to echo what has been said already, I think the way in which the Chief Executive has drawn this paper together in consultation has been a tremendous effort, but also to remind members that this is an enabling paper. An account will be taken of what has been said today, and also what members feed in between now and when the papers are published for the next full council meeting. And I think members have heard loudly and clearly we want to get the minutes out a bit quicker. I'm sure account will be taken of that when the final paper comes back to full council. But let's welcome enormously the way in which this has been drawn together and take it as an opportunity to amend or suggest things between now and the March meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bolt. Councillor Pearce, will you come back and accept this amendment or have comment on it, please? Councillor Pearce?
Yes. No, sorry, I was just trying to read it.
Yeah.
Associated times request on the revision to the. Yes, that's much better. It follows on with the preface much better. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
so,
that's fine as
right,
wording.
we'll accept that. So you'll accept that, so we can vote on the on all.
And for the sake of form, so do I accept it.
Right. Okay. Sorry, Councillor Baldry. Right. So are we going to the vote on this now, then, Darryl?
Chairman, sorry, or Vice Chair,
sorry.
can I just check? Is that the full wording there?
It's four. The recommendation's got 4 parts. Councillor.
Yeah.
Just in terms of process, before we move to the vote, we now have a new 2D, which has been accepted by the proposer and seconder, which is at the bottom of the first screen. But yeah, it does straddle 2 screens, Councillor Smurden, but it's 4 parts to the recommendation. So you've got 1, 2A, B, C, and D, 3 and 4.
Right.
Can I just say that I didn't accept it. I didn't accept it. If you're suggesting that I accepted that amendment to my amendment.
Oh. Right.
So, Councillor Hodgson, which element of that you want to actually keep the 5 within? Because at the moment it says request a further report be presented to the next council held on 25th March, focus on the proposed revisions to the associated timescales with regard to publishing its draft minutes of full council meetings. What did you want to add in to that bit then?
No, I don't want to add to that. I just want to go back to what I originally wrote. So it was just that somebody said that the proposer had accepted it, and if I was being cited as the proposer, I don't accept that. I think the thing about having it being able to considers within a week, which is what we had in the previous proposed amendment, and that's what I had, and that's what was seconded. But if it's now been an amendment to my amendment, which we're voting on, then I hear that, but I'm not saying I support it.
Okay, so if that's the case, then so we need to go back, put back your wording in, then Councillor Hodgson, you're willing to accept. So focus on proposed.
We have Councillor Hodgson's back in again, as you had it, Darryl.
It didn't, but I took Councillor Pearce's point. It didn't necessarily lead on from the focus on proposed revisions too.
Right.
Sorry. And actually, Councillor Pearce's comments came in after the amendment to my amendment was put up. So I thought she was referring to that one rather than my proposal of a week.
I think Councillor Pearce was talking on the amendment, Councillor Hodgson, but if you're not willing to accept that, can I just have your wording again then, please?
Oh, but it got modified, didn't it? Hang on a minute. Because you didn't actually type what I read out, so I haven't actually got. Hang on.
Yes, Darryl did. Yeah, he had it there. You changed one word, didn't you? Because you said put in considers. I thought you'd accept that.
Yeah, I did. I accepted what he'd written, but it wasn't actually what I'd got written down and read out. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't. It's no big deal. But I just haven't got actually the wording exactly here. Hang on a sec. So it was considers publishing the minutes, the minutes of full council meetings within a week. Of the meeting.
So the issue now, Vice Chair, is that is the amendment which has been seconded. It's whether Councillor Pearce is willing to accept that. If not, we'll be voting on the amendment.
Right, Councillor Pearce, are you willing to accept that?
Yes, because really that's going to give us time to consider this properly and look into the time spans for officers and all the rest of it before the 25th of March. So yes, I'm happy to accept that.
Right, okay. Before I go any further, I think. Thank you, Councillor Beaudry. Councillor Panel, you raised a point of order.
Well, as Councillor Pearce has accepted the amendment, I'm very happy to drop my amendment to the amendment.
Okay, right.
Vice Chairman, may I just come back with one point?
Yes, you may. Yeah.
Should it be the draft minutes of full council meetings, because they won't have been passed by the council, will they? They won't have been approved by the council until the following meeting. So it should be the draft minutes.
That's
that's what I actually did say in the first instance. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Fine.
Okay. Yeah, it is. You got the word draft in there. Yes, that's fine.
Yes, it's in
okay.
There now. Thank you.
Okay. So you and Councillor Beaudry are prepared to accept that amendment. So are there any other comments that people want to make on any of these points at all? No. So can we go to the vote then, Darryl?
Thank you very much, Vice Chair. So members, on the substantive motion with the addition at D, Councillor Abbott.
For.
Rostin?
I'm against the amendment. So I would vote against section D, but I'm in favour of the rest of the recommendation.
Technically, Councillor Austin, it's a job lot, if you like, now, because that's been accepted by the proposal and seconder. We are voting on it as one. So if you're against the amendment, but not the whole thing, we're voting on it as a job lot, if you like.
In which case, I'll vote in favour of the job lot.
Thank you. Councillor Baldry?
For.
Councillor Bustone? Councillor Bastow? Back. Councillor Birch?
For.
Councillor Brazil?
For.
Councillor Brown?
For.
Councillor Chow?
For.
Councillor Foss?
For.
Councillor Hawkins?
For.
Councillor Hodgson?
For.
Councillor Holway?
For.
Councillor Hopgood?
For.
Councillor Jackson?
For.
Councillor Kemp? Long?
For.
Councillor McKay?
For.
Councillor Callaghan?
For. For.
Councillor Panel?
So is that me, Mr. White?
Yeah, Councillor Panel. Yes, it is. Councillor
Yeah,
Panel.
you disappeared into the ether. For.
Councillor Pearce?
For.
Councillor Pennington? Councillor Pennington? Councillor Pringle?
For.
Reeve?
For.
Councillor Rose? Councillor Rose?
I don't think
apologies,
she's there, Darryl.
Sorry.
I'm here.
Councillor Rowe? Councillor Rowe?
Yes, for.
Councillor Snowden?
For.
Councillor Spencer?
For.
Councillor Taylor?
For.
Councillor Thomas?
For.
And a final call for Councillor Bastone
For.
and Councillor Pennington. Councillor Pennington doesn't seem to be there. Thank you, members. That therefore is 28 votes and unanimously in favour of the recommendations.
All right, thank you. Councillor Rose, are you there?
I am here, but my screen is blinking at me like mad, and all I've got is Darryl's picture in the middle of it and not a lot else. So do you think we could take, as we did mention about a break, if we take, not quite sure what time it is, if we take 10-minute break and then come back, reconvene, and I will sort my screen out hopefully in between times. I've got broadband, but it's not working correctly.
I've got
Chairman.
one point of order that Councillor
Yes.
Smurden wants to bring up.
I'd like, yeah, just going back to the way that the last motion and some other ones have been displayed on the screen. Just going back to Mr. White, within, I know we're all working within the limits of the technology that we've got, but personally, I feel that the whole of if there's a motion that members are voting for, then everything that members are voting for should be displayed on the screen at once. I'm not sure whether there's going to be some technical whiz by which you can condense it down or something, but I'm unhappy that some bits of what members are voting for is not displayed in front of them. It's not. I'm not getting. It's no reflection on Mr. White. You're working within the technology, but as a point of principle, and we're trying to do the best that we can and get everything democratically correct. I think that members should have everything that they're voting for on the screen in front of them.
Can I take that outside the meeting, Chair? Is that okay?
Yes, you can.
The only thing is there's also like take the revenue budget proposals with 10 parts of recommendation. If that was on one screen, it would be ineligible. But we'll take it offline and see what we can do if that helps, Vice Chair.
Thank you. Thank you
for that. And we will return at 22:05. Yes.
Yes, can I see? I've now got my screen back up and running. Everything's there, so that's fine. Thank you.